Caves have always been places of mystery, dark, silent, and filled with secrets that have remained untouched for centuries. But when those caves are underwater, the danger doesn't just double, it multiplies. Beneath the surface lies a different world, one where visibility can vanish in seconds, air becomes the most precious resource, and a single wrong turn can mean the difference between life and death. Today, take a deep breath and prepare to be gripped by real-life cave diving incidents that push divers to the edge of survival. These aren't just tales of thrill seekers, they're dramatic, often terrifying stories of courage, panic, and split-second decisions. Let's dive into the heart-pounding depths of 3 true cave dive rescues that defy belief. The Caribbean Island Cave Incident, a vacation turned nightmare. In February 1994, the sun-soaked shores of a Caribbean island promised nothing but fun and relaxation for 2 vacationers, David Parks and his friend Jerry. Both were excited for a getaway filled with warm beaches, good food, and tropical sunshine. But like many great adventures, things took an unexpected turn. While chatting with locals, David and Jerry heard whispers about a mysterious cave nearby. This wasn't just any cave, it was said to have a hidden pool deep inside. The intrigue was irresistible. The catch? Neither of them had any real cave diving experience. That didn't stop them. With the enthusiasm only vacationers can have, they grabbed some basic snorkeling gear, a couple of diving lights, and set out for an adventure. When they found the cave, it wasn't the breezy exploration they imagined. What greeted them was a 70-foot vertical drop straight down into darkness. The cave walls were slick and damp, and each step downward echoed with tension. But they pressed on, their lights slicing through the thick blackness. At the bottom, they finally arrived at what they'd been told about, a large, eerie room with a pool of still, dark water in the center. But what they didn't know was that this pool wasn't just a stagnant body of water. It was connected to a twisting, narrow system of underwater tunnels with very few air pockets. Still, curiosity won out. They eased into the icy water and turned on their lights, swimming into the first tunnel. For a while, things went surprisingly smoothly. They'd surface for air whenever they found one of those tiny pockets, squeezing into cramped spaces just big enough to breathe. But as they moved deeper, the walls began to close in. The tunnels were tight, almost claustrophobic, and the water pressed in from all sides. After a while, they surfaced again, this time in a slightly larger chamber. It had a small rock ledge, just enough to sit and rest. That's when reality started to set in. They were deep inside, far from the entrance. Time to head back. David led the way into the tunnel, but as they swam, their fins accidentally stirred up silt from the cave floor. In seconds, the clear water became a murky soup. Their flashlights were useless now. Visibility had gone to 0. In the chaos, David lost sight of Jerry. He stopped, spun around, called out, shone his light in every direction, but nothing. Worse, every tunnel now looked the same. Which way was out? His lungs began to ache. Panic crept in fast. He kept swimming, hoping he was headed in the right direction, but with each stroke he was going deeper into the cave instead of out. Then a sliver of hope. His hand brushed an air pocket above. He surfaced too fast and slammed his head against a jagged rock. Pain shot through him, but the relief of breathing again overwhelmed everything. The pocket was small and stifling. The air was stale. He could feel the weight of the cave above pressing down, reminding him just how trapped he was. Meanwhile, Jerry had made it back to the original pool near the cave's base. He surfaced, waited, looked around, but no sign of David. Minutes ticked by. He shouted, waved his light around, but the black water gave nothing back. Inside the air pocket, David knew time was running out. The air was thin. The walls were closing in. he made a decision. One last try. He adjusted his mask, dipped below the surface, and this time switched off his light. Maybe, just maybe, he'd see Jerry's beam cutting through the haze. And there it was, a faint glow in the distance. Kicking hard, lungs screaming, he surged toward the light. Just as he thought he couldn't go any farther, his head broke the surface. He saw Jerry, wide-eyed, holding the light. Exhausted and gasping, David clung to the edge of the pool as Jerry grabbed his arm and pulled him out. They climbed, slowly and painfully, back up the shaft, every movement a battle. When daylight finally hit their faces again, it didn't feel real. The tropical paradise they'd started in now seemed like another world. What had started as a vacation story turned into a near-death escape neither would ever forget. Roaring River Cave, a dive that went from precision to panic. October 14th, 2022. Roaring River Cave, deep in the heart of Missouri. This wasn't a tourist attraction or a casual swim spot. It was a professional dive mission involving a trained team of elite divers. One of them was 27-year-old Eric Hahn. Calm, focused, and trained for high-stakes dives, Eric had a specific role that day: to place spare air tanks at various depths for other divers venturing into the cave's deepest parts. The plan was mapped out in detail. Each diver had a job. Two would explore the furthest corners of the cave. Eric and another diver were responsible for placing backup air tanks at 130 and 190 feet. Life-saving checkpoints, if anything went wrong. That morning, gear checks were meticulous. Breathing systems, tanks, lights, and emergency protocols were reviewed over and over. Eric was diving with a rebreather, a device that recycles exhaled air, removing carbon dioxide and adding oxygen, allowing longer, deeper dives. But it demands constant monitoring. If anything goes wrong with a rebreather, there's almost no margin for error. At 11:12 a.m., Eric entered the cold water following a guide rope that would mark the path out. By 11:24, he reached the 90-foot mark. Everything seemed fine. He met one of the deep team divers there, exchanged a thumbs up, and began placing an air tank at the designated location. But just a minute later, everything changed. Eric suddenly collided with another diver, known as Diver 3, and then, without warning, began ascending far too quickly. That kind of rapid ascent is dangerous, especially at those depths. Diver 3 realized something was wrong and raced after him. He caught up as Eric hit the rocky ceiling at 165 feet, his body jerking in distress. Eric's rebreather was malfunctioning. His breathing was labored, and in the panic, he pulled out his mouthpiece without closing the system. Water flooded in. Diver 3 reacted fast, trying to give Eric the emergency breathing tube, but the situation spiraled out of control. As the emergency tube was inserted, Eric began to shake violently, classic signs of an oxygen toxicity seizure. At that depth, too much oxygen can overload the body, leading to convulsions and unconsciousness. The two men sank together, dropping to a depth of 204 feet. Visibility disappeared. Dirt from the cave floor swirled up, blinding them. Diver 3 was now in an impossible position. He was running low on air himself, and trying to stabilize Eric while keeping the breathing tube in place was nearly impossible. With no visibility and no clear direction, staying meant risking both their lives. Meanwhile, another diver had gone to the surface to call for help. Back in the depths, Diver 3 made a gut-wrenching decision. With time and air slipping away, he had to leave Eric behind and head up. On his way, he crossed paths with another teammate, Diver 2, who immediately tried to go down and help. But the same problems met him: zero visibility, disorientation, and dangerously high oxygen levels. It was too late. At 11:35 a.m., just 23 minutes after the dive had begun, Diver 3 surfaced. Eric wasn't with him. The surface team quickly realized this was no longer a rescue mission. It was a recovery. Hours later, at 4 p.m., the Missouri Highway Patrol dive team arrived. They eventually located Eric's body near the 200-foot mark. The mission had turned from technical precision to tragedy in just minutes. Even with the best training, cave diving can throw in factors no one can prepare for. Kalama Cave Incident, when experience isn't enough. December 2004. Deep in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula lies Sistema Sac Actun, the world's longest underwater cave system, stretching over 229 miles. Beautiful, mysterious, and utterly unforgiving. That month, a team of 9 highly experienced divers gathered to explore a section called Cenote Calima. These weren't amateurs. They had hundreds of dives under their belts, knew their gear inside out, and trusted each other with their lives. The day began with bright skies and cool water. Equipment checks were thorough: breathing regulators, tanks, reels, and cookies. Small colored plastic markers used to map paths inside the cave. Their plan was straightforward. Team A would go in first, laying down the guideline and markers. Team B would follow behind, turn back at a specific point, and return. Team A entered first. The entrance water was crystal clear, visibility perfect. But as they moved deeper, the light faded and silence wrapped around them. Markers were placed carefully at each intersection, including a yellow one to show Team B the correct direction. Team B followed. Everything was smooth until they reached the second intersection. That's where the crucial mistake happened. Instead of turning left, the path marked for exit, they turned right. The tunnels looked nearly identical. In the dim light and tight spaces, the difference was almost impossible to catch, but they were now going the wrong way, deeper into the cave system. For 25 minutes. They swam in the wrong direction, traveling about 1,400 feet farther than they were supposed to. By the time they realized something was off, the water had turned cloudy with silt. Visibility dropped, panic rose, and then the real problem surfaced. Team A had already exited and removed the markers. Team B was lost inside, without guidance, and with their air ticking away. They stopped at another intersection and finally understood they'd made a wrong turn, but by now, it was too late. One diver swam ahead to find a way out, but found only more darkness. As panic crept in, breathing quickened. Faster breathing meant faster oxygen loss. Air tanks began to drop toward empty. Desperation set in. Team B split into 2 pairs. The first pair pushed ahead, hoping to retrace their steps. Miraculously, they reached the intersection where they had turned wrong, only to find the yellow marker gone. They were truly lost. On the surface, Team A waited. Minutes passed. Something was wrong. Divers grabbed spare tanks and went back in to search. Just 250 feet from the exit, they found the first pair from Team B, exhausted, and with almost no air left but alive. The rescuers asked where the other 2 were. The first pair had seen their lights, not far behind. So, the rescuers waited. But no one appeared. Eventually, they went back in, their lights cutting through the silence. Then, they saw them. 2 still figures floating near the ceiling of the cave. Their tanks were checked, empty. They had run out of air before help could reach them. These were not reckless divers. They were skilled, trained, prepared. But even experience wasn't enough when a single wrong turn in the maze-like tunnels of Calima sealed their fate. Cave diving is more than just a thrill. It's a test of the human spirit. In these underwater labyrinths, even the smallest mistake can spiral into chaos. Whether it's 2 friends on vacation, a professional dive team on a mission, or seasoned explorers in a world-class cave system, one thing is clear: the ocean and the underground caves within it don't play favorites. Each of these incidents reminds us how thin the line between awe and tragedy can be, but they also showcase incredible moments of human endurance, quick thinking, and survival against all odds. If you found this story gripping, don't forget to like, share, and dub it so more people can experience these jaw-dropping true events.